Howdy gamers, it's your boy Empoleon Nerd. Now, I know what you're thinking.
Emp? What the fuck is this? Aren't you the guy that usually just uploads his recordings and VODs and shit on YouTube with zero editing?
Yes! But yeah, anyways, I've been playing Pokemon Unite a lot in a Discord server I'm in, and I've noticed a decent few people wanting to get into the game, and Pokemon Unite's kind of a complex game. It is a MOBA after all, there's a lot of stuff to learn and strategy and meta and all that shit, but I do have over 500 hours in this game. 500 hours, Jesus, really? Get a life, Em. 500 hours in this game, so I feel like I'm a little qualified to maybe give some advice and a general guide to those who want to get into the game. Little disclaimer, I do not claim to be an expert in Pokemon Unite. I don't know, like, competitive meta and shit and all that. I'm just saying, as someone with a lot of hours in the game, what I have experienced and what I think works well. So, do not kill me if I say something incorrect, please. Thank you. Anyways, here's my guide on Pokemon Unite. The basics. Okay, so when I say the basics, I'm not talking about actually the basic controls of the game. Like, if you want to learn how to score goals and move around, you're gonna have to watch the in-game tutorials. It's right there, and it gives you free coins, which you can use to buy Pokemon. You just go do those, please. But yeah, what I mean by the basics is more the general idea of how the game is played and what should be prioritized. So the objective of Pokemon Unite is to have the highest team score at the end of the game. You increase your score by scoring points in enemy goal zones, and you protect your team's goal zone so that enemies can't score their points in it. However, this does not mean that scoring points is the only thing you should be focused on. In my opinion, the priorities in this game from highest to lowest are helping out teammates in battles with opponents, especially if it's a battle over an objective. Showing up to objectives, which include Dreadnought, Rotom, and most importantly, Zapdos. These all have different functions, which I'll explain in a little bit. Scoring goals when the enemy goal is unguarded. Guarding your goal to make sure enemies cannot score points into it. Farming, aka killing wild Pokemon to gain EXP and level up. Wild Pokemon are also referred to as farm, just for future reference for when I call them farm. Just a little note on how experience works in this game. You get the most experience when you land the last hit on a Pokemon. If you help kill a wild Pokemon but a teammate gets the last hit on it, you get residual EXP, which will be slightly less than what they get. If an enemy gets the last hit on a wild Pokemon, you don't get jack shit. So be careful of enemies who have really good secure moves, which are moves that do a lot of damage and can guarantee they can steal the last hit before you can do enough damage to kill the wild Pokemon. The Pokemon. There are 5 roles in Pokemon Unite. There are speedsters, attackers, all-rounders, defenders, and supporters. Speedsters have high offense and mobility, but low endurance and range. These are very risky fighters since they both fight up close and can be killed super fast thanks to not having much defense or HP, or in layman's terms, being squishy as hell. It takes a lot of skill to play a speedster, and you generally want to jump in, do a lot of damage quickly, and get away fast. Attackers have high offense and range, low endurance, and varying mobility. These are almost all Pokemon intended to be played exclusively at a range, meaning you don't want enemies jumping in too close to you. All-rounders have decently balanced stats all around, hence the name. Because of their slightly higher defensive stats, all-rounders can often be very up-close and personal in battles, and most of them are melee attackers to take advantage of this, although there are some ranged ones. Defenders have high endurance, semi-decent offense, and varying mobility. These are very tanky and usually play a supportive role in team fights by moving enemies around, stunning them, and just being a general unignorable obstacle to the opponents. Supporters have high endurance and varying other stats. These are very much intended to be support-focused rather than offense-focused, hence the fucking name. And they all have either moves that can heal your teammates, buff your teammates, or hinder the enemies. The pregame. So when you get matched into a game, you will be put into the Pokemon Select screen. This is a very important part of the game, and just choosing your Pokemon and then scrolling through your phone without paying attention to anything else can cost you a win. Keep these things in mind. The lane you're going in. It is incredibly important that you check the Battle Prep tab and make sure you call which lane you're going to. Not doing so can result in a couple seconds of confusion over who's going where at the beginning of the game that can leave your team way behind the enemy team. Remember that in an average game of Pokemon Unite, you want one Pokemon in the central area, aka the jungle, and two Pokemon in each lane. Any other formation is very hard to pull off, especially in a match with random teammates. The 1 in top lane, 3 in bottom lane strat is used in competitive Unite, but it can only be pulled off if the 1 in top lane is good enough at the game to work solo. Odds are, if you're in a match with randos, that one person is not going to be reliable enough to handle the entire lane by themselves. The Pokemon you've selected. Certain Pokemon do better in certain lanes. The person in central area, aka the jungle, generally wants to be someone who has decent mobility, has a lot of damage output, and struggles early game but gets really good late game. Because the high amount of EXP in central area means you level up fast and basically skips early game. It's kind of a waste to have Pokemon that are already great early game in the jungle. Speedsters work best, although some attackers and all-rounders can be pretty good in jungle. Okay, well, honestly, with the meta right now, I think attackers are better than speedsters, to be honest, but whatever. Never go into jungle as a defender or supporter. If you do so, I will find you. The top and bottom lane can generally be any Pokemon, although you generally don't want to be a speedster since it's risky to lane with due to its squishiness and need to fight up close. Plus, if your jungler's a speedster, it's very risky to have more than one of that risky of a role. However, once you choose a Pokemon, you'll also want to see who your lane partner is and make sure they would make a good lane partner for the Pokemon you've chosen. Things you want to consider are the roles. You generally want at least one Pokemon in lane with good damage, meaning either an attacker, all-rounder, or, God forbid, speedster. You almost never want to have a lane of 2 defenders or 2 supporters, as the low damage output will make it hard for you to secure kills on wild Pokemon and make it hard to level up. Early game or late game. Some Pokemon are really good early game, some Pokemon take a couple of level ups to get good. You generally want to have at least one decent early game Pokemon in each lane so you're not struggling to level up. Good early game means you have moves that can ensure you get the last hits on wild Pokemon, whether through doing enough damage to make sure you steal it, moving wild Pokemon closer to your goal so it's harder for the enemies to reach, or stunning the enemies so they can't get the final hits on wild Pokemon. If one of the Pokemon in lane is a late game Pokemon, it could also be a good idea to have a defender or supporter in lane with them to support them and help them secure kills. Range of attacks. This isn't mandatory, but it could be a good idea to pair a melee attacker with a ranged attacker. If an all-rounder or a defender with melee attacks can be right in the thick of battle holding the enemy's attention, that makes it a lot easier for an attacker to dish out damage from a distance without having the enemies, immediately fucking jump on them. So those are the things you want to consider when choosing your Pokemon. Now back to other things you want to consider pre-game. Your held items. Before you go into a match, you should definitely look into all the different held items and think about what would go best with the Pokemon you want to play as. Some all-round good picks when you're starting off are Muscle Band, which adds a certain percentage of your HP onto your basic attacks, Focus Band, which starts to slowly heal you if you get low health, and one of the top tier items, Buddy Barrier, which when you use your Unite move, you and a nearby ally with the lowest HP get a shield equal to 40% of your max HP. That shit is busted and I don't know how it hasn't been nerfed yet. And last but not least, your battle item. Battle items are items that you can activate throughout the match and go on a cooldown once you use them. The most effective one, I would say, is the eject button, which basically instantly teleports you a short distance and is a very good escape tool. X-Speed is also a decent escape tool, I think. A lot of people disagree, but I would say it's a good escape tool. If you can use it to run before you can get trapped into combat, and it can be helpful to switch lanes and get to fights quickly. Slow Smoke is good for escaping because it leaves a slowing area behind you as you run, but it can also be good for using within battle to keep opponents from getting away. Potion is a good survival option too, as it instantly gives you a good chunk of HP. The objectives. Okay, so as I mentioned before, there are objectives throughout the game that you should be focusing on when they show up. Dreadnought spawns in the bottom lane at 7 minutes and respawns every 2 minutes after defeating. If defeated by your team, it gives the entire team shields and EXP. It takes priority over Rotom early game because the EXP puts your entire team at an early advantage. You want to be higher leveled than your enemies so you can kill them easier. This is just a numbers game. This is simple math. Rotom spawns in the top lane at 7 minutes, same time as Dreadnought, and also respawns every 2 minutes after defeating him. If defeated by your team, it temporarily becomes kind of part of your team and starts moving towards an enemy goal. And if it gets there with no obstructions, it hacks the goal and makes it so that you can score instantly in that goal for a short time. No having to charge up a score or anything, just press the button, you got the goal, and yay. When on your team, Rotom will stop in place and start attacking anytime an enemy is close enough to it. If your Rotom is heading to an enemy goal, you can either choose to push it, which is escorting it and fighting off any opponents who try to stop it, or let it go on its own as a distraction for the enemy team. It takes priority late game, especially right before Zapdos, because it can serve as a distraction that will split up the enemy team. Okay, now let's talk about Zapdos. Zapdos spawns in the very center of the map at 2 minutes exactly, and it is the biggest fucking priority in this game. When defeated by your team, it drops lightning bolts all over the map that stuns opponents, and it makes all of their goal zones instantly scoreable in. This is a very important objective to secure because the 2 minute mark is also when all goals scored are doubled in points. If you get to an enemy goal with 50 points after your team has gotten Zapdos, you can, in a single button press, score a full 100 points. So yeah, you want to ensure you get this Zapdos by any fucking means necessary. You should only start attacking the Zapdos if at least one Pokemon who can shred it is there, aka someone who can quickly deplete all of its HP like Cinderace, Decidueye, Greninja, etc. Or if most of your team is there and most of the enemy team is dead. You want to minimize the chances of a fucker running in and yoinking the last hit on Zapdos. If you see an enemy hanging out near Zapdos but not engaging in a fight, always prioritize taking them out or they will jump in to steal the last hit. I'm not kidding, like, fucking Venusaur with Solar Beam, that shit can steal objectives so fast. So, some important notes on the objective Pokemon. When Zapdos spawns, Dreadnought will despawn, and any Rotom that has not been claimed by an enemy team will also despawn. Keep the amount of time until Zapdos spawns in mind when attacking Dreadnought or Rotom, because if you can't kill it by the time it spawns, you'll have wasted time. However, Rotoms that have been taken by a team will not despawn and will continue to head towards a goal. Hence why they're such a good distraction. Dreadnought and Zapdos cannot be shoved, stunned, moved around, or affected by any hindrances. They'll also both start regaining health if left alone for too long. Rotom can be shoved and moved around, and it will not restore its health like the other objectives can. If you move too far away or go too long without attacking it, Dreadnought will walk back to its original position and start regaining its health. Make sure you stick close enough to the area so it doesn't lose interest in you. Top and bottom lane. Okay, so you're going top or bottom lane. First things first, you're going to be heading down your lane and killing the wild Pokemon on the way. Make absolutely sure to keep an eye on where the rest of your team is heading, because you want to have 2 Pokemon in each lane and only 1 Pokemon in the central area at all costs. If someone didn't call their lane, there's a chance they weren't paying attention to lane assignments and will be going a random direction. So be prepared to account for that and maybe switch lanes if there are 3 Pokemon bottom. Now, let's talk about the jungle wild Pokemon. At the beginning of the game, by no means should you be touching any of the wild Pokemon in the central area. This means no attacking the Lillipup, no heading into the jungle to steal a Corphish, and fucking-lutely no attacking Ludicolo or Bouffalant. Not only does it take away EXP from your jungler, who needs to be high leveled and have jungle buffs to effectively help you out in fights, but you being away from lane means your lane mate is at a disadvantage in a 1v2, and the enemy team gets more and more EXP from taking all of the wild Pokemon in your lane. You get basically the same amount of experience as if you had stayed in lane, and it only negatively impacts your team. The only circumstances in which you should be taking jungle farm are if it's late enough in the game where the jungler has already evolved / gotten the move upgrades they need, the jungler is not anywhere near the wild Pokemon, nor they're making any attempt to move towards them, and you are not a Pokemon whose basic attacks are a massive part of battles like a supporter. Also, generally you want to be good enough at the game to avoid dying immediately, because if you die, you give the enemy your jungle buffs, and you don't want to give them more of an advantage. Okay, now that we've got that out of the way, after killing all of the wild Pokemon on your way down the lane at the beginning of the game, you'll arrive at your front goal. Always go deal with a wild Pokemon in the middle first. It's the one Pokemon at the very beginning that the two sides are equally close to, so you want to guarantee your team is the one that gets a slight EXP advantage by getting it before the enemies can. In top lane, this will be a Corphish in the bottom of the lane. In bottom lane, this will be an Audino at the top of the lane. So at 8 minutes and 50 seconds exactly, 3 Combees and a Vespiquen will spawn in the very middle of the lane. Be ready to fight over them and try to get the last hits on as many as you can so you can have the level advantage over the enemies in your lane. By this point in the match, the jungler should be done with their farm, so they should be heading to one of the lanes to help fight over the bees. Throughout the match, an objective Pokemon will spawn in your lane occasionally. In top lane, this is Rotom. In bottom lane, this is Dreadnought. You should know what this means. I explained them earlier in the video, right? You remember, right? So you should never start attacking it out of nowhere. Before you start attacking the objective, you should keep these things in mind. Is there a fight happening near the objective that I should be helping with? Have I just killed everyone else in this lane, or has it been long enough for them to respawn and get back here? Like, are the opponents going to show up to fight over this objective? How quickly can I shred through this objective's HP? My Pokemon with enough damage output to take it down before opponents come in? How many teammates are around to help me with this objective? Is this objective the biggest priority right now? Is there a fight happening at a different objective that I should be at? Do I have enough time to kill this objective, or is Zapdos about to spawn? Another thing to consider is leaving your lane to help secure an objective in the other lane. When thinking about this, consider these things. Is there a fight happening over the other objective that I should go help? Is me leaving this lane going to result in the objective here being stolen, or can I get back in time to fight for this one? Should there be one person left in this lane to watch it, or are literally all of the enemies in the other lane fighting for the other objective? But yeah, if you consider all of these things, there are certain circumstances in which abandoning your lane to go fight an objective in the other lane can be a very good idea. Like, if there's one Pokemon on the enemy team left in that lane and your entire team is in the other lane fighting over an objective, what are they gonna do? Score their 10 points while you get a fucking Rotom to instantly score, what, over 100 points? Yeah, good job scoring those 10 points, buddy. We just won the fucking game. Central Area, or the Jungle. So being the Central Area Pokemon, or Jungler as it's better known, is a very big responsibility. So if you're a new player thinking,
I want to be the cool guy that carries his team.
maybe don't do this role. Just wait until you have more experience, bud. You're not ready. Anyways, there should only be one person jungling on your team. There are some strategies where you can have junglers cycle out to take advantage of the experience, but generally you want to stick with one jungler. So your job is to take advantage of the extra EXP gained in the central area to become powerful, then jump into the lanes that need assistance and help win fights. Bouffalant gives you an orange buff, which adds a slowing effect to your normal attacks. Ludicolo gives you a purple buff, which boosts your damage to enemies with low health. Important warning here, if you get killed by enemy Pokemon, you give all of your jungle buffs to the one who landed the last hit on you. So, jumping in as a suicide bomber to try to get some kills is only gonna negatively impact your team because you're giving the enemy team an advantage. Also, Buffalon and Ludicolo will respawn every minute after they're defeated throughout the course of the game, so always keep a lookout for the yellow dots on the map where they spawn, and go farm them whenever you have a free moment. Once you're done with the wild Pokemon on the left side central area, you should immediately head to a lane. Ideally the one who looks like they're struggling and needs the most help. At 8 minutes and 50 seconds, 3 Combees and a Vespiquen will spawn in the middle of each lane. You'll know this if you saw the top-bottom lane part. Your job is to help the lane Pokemon on your team secure the kills on these bees. You can either engage in a fight with the enemy team and distract them while your team gets EXP from the bees, or if the enemies are too close to the fight and have a possibility of stealing the bees, you can try to kill the bees yourself and at the very least get your team the residual EXP. For the rest of the game, your job is basically going to be to cycle around to wherever you're needed. Top lane, bottom lane, jungle, wherever. You need to help out in team fights, make sure you're at objectives, and then farm in the free spaces in between. Remember that you're a very vital part of your team. Your presence can guarantee a battle's victory, and your absence can mean your team's demise. So yeah, I think that's about all of the information I can think of that's important to know. To any experienced players watching this video, feel free to comment below and preferably politely let me know what mistakes I made. My main goal is to help people understand how to play this game, so if I get anything wrong, I would love to correct it. And to any new people to the game who watch this video to try to learn how to play, I hope this video was helpful to you. I don't do edited videos that much because I don't have too much free time, but if people are interested in it, I would be willing to maybe make some in-depth guides on how to play individual Pokemon or whatever. Yeah. So that's the end of the video. I should probably do the YouTube thing, shouldn't I? Okay, give me a second.
If you like this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
That brought me physical pain to say. But yeah, thank you for watching, and see you later, gamers.
Goodbye.